Hello, hello, hello. Messy room, messy room. I'm showing off my messy room. Boop doop boop boo. Boop doop boop boo. Hello, hello, everybody. I don't know if anybody's here or not, but it doesn't actually tell me. So, hello, hello. I hope everyone is having a lovely evening. I'm going to go ahead and go live over here on TikTok as well, so that I'm live in a couple of places. I don't know if anybody's over on the YouTube. I'm not really doing anything though. So I'm really just pattern writing, and I thought maybe I might try moving my camera so that I can. I don't know if this will work or not. Don't know if this will work or not, but this is what I'm working on. So we're just doing a little pattern writing, and I'm going to go live on the YouTubes. I'm hoping you can hear me. Can you hear me? I don't know if my microphone is working. What do you do if I sing out of tune? Let's see. It's working perfect. Thank you, Paula. I'm like, I have no idea because my little thing's not lighting up, and I don't have my ears on. My hearing aids aren't in tonight because I'm not doing any. I'm not listening to anything, so I can't actually hear stuff. I can kind of hear myself normally, but everything else is really, really low and muted, and I can't hear anything without my hearing aids in. But I'm also not listening to anything. So let's get the TikTok live going too, shall we? All y'all white people's gonna be here. I would have worn my. Let's get the TikTok live going. We'll do a live. We're gonna flip this. Ooh, let's do the dual camera thing. Right? And we're gonna point it up like that, so that we are giving a good A good show. A good show. All right. So here we go. Although I do wish. Wait, what just happened? My dual camera just went away. My dual camera just went away. I don't know what happened. Oh no. All right, well, it's fine. It's fine. Rewriting things is weird, y'all. Like, rewriting stuff is weird. I've been trying to rewrite this particular pattern forever, and I keep finding ways that I dislike how it was written. Hello, Sandra in Nashville. How are you? I am live over on YouTube, everybody. If you would like to go to YouTube and check out the live there. I am live over on YouTube. So anyway, yeah, so I'm rewriting this pattern. I wrote it originally on paper, and then I transferred it to EQ8. And the problem I have with EQ8 and this particular pattern is that it's a custom block pattern, which basically just means that I can place everything wherever I want. But because my borders are not standard borders, I had to make the borders as a separate item in EQ8. So they're not using the borders utility. They are created using the block tool, and then put on here, and nothing really fits because of that. I had to turn off basically the 1/4-inch snap, so it doesn't snap exactly into place. Like you can see, there's in EQ8 there are overlaps and spots where things don't quite fit correctly because it is all done with my mouse. And so it looks like there's space, but in reality, if I do the math, and when I put it together, there's not actually extra space, and that shit drives me nuts. Except for here. So this, I'm going to have to make these 2 inches, I think. In order for everything to fit correctly. And I don't know how good people can see. I thought there was a way, at one time there was a way that I could share my screen on YouTube Live. I know there's a way for me to do it on TikTok, and I just don't have the stuff installed. But I thought there was a way for me to do it on YouTube Live, but I can't seem to make that work. So that's where we are. Anywho, so this pattern, this is all a single color in here, but in the pattern itself, when I make it, it's not just this gray and pink. I chose gray and pink because I love pink. Love it. 26 new messages. Goodness. Hello, hello. I don't know who all might be here because I have not been paying attention. Um, Bacon Egg USA. Yes, it is EQ8. I would need this to have a snap feature. So the Anxious Crafter, it does have a snap feature. EQ8 has a snap feature. I turned it off for this because the borders that I am writing for it are non-standard borders. So what happens, I'll show you in EQ8. So what happens if you were to do a border or you were to do a layout, and you wanted like a custom layout set, for instance. I'm going to do a new quilt. File, new project. Oh, you know what I'm going to do before I do that, though, is I'm going to go back to my quilt work table. Is it that one? It's not that one. It's that one. Yes. Open. It's that one. All right. Perfect. Now, new project. Test. Okay, so what happens if you do a new quilt in EQ8? On your quilt table, you'll have, and I'll move this a little bit so you can see it better, but there's like this toolbar up top here, and this toolbar up top has different kind of already set up layouts. I tend towards using the custom layout here, mostly because I don't always use like standard blocks. But if you had like blocks that you wanted that were 12 by 12, for instance, you could choose just like the normal horizontal layout like this, and then you can tell it how many blocks you want it to be. So maybe if I wanted it to be 3 blocks by 5 blocks, I would just tell it that. And then I can also tell it over here, and then I can also tell how wide I want the blocks to be. So, and this is going to be finished size. So if I wanted them to be 12 inches finished, I could just do 12 inches finished. And always keep the ratio. And if I want to include sashing, I can include sashing. I never use sashing. I dislike sashing a lot, so I almost never put sashing in, but you can totally use sashing if you want. So you could include sashing, and you can tell it, how big or how small you want the sashing to be. And then that will allow you to add stuff. I never use sashing, so I don't use that tool. But so you can choose the layout, and then you can decide, if you want regular borders, horizontal borders, or vertical borders, or what it is that you want the borders to be, how big you want the borders to be. If you want like spaced squares, or if you want like a diamond border, you can plan all of that stuff out. The problem that I have for myself with the borders as border blocks is that what I want always is for the border blocks to be kind of consistent all the way around. But I also need it to be a certain number for this quilt. So, if I wanted, for instance, I'm going to add an inner border. I'm going to make this inner border a long vertical inner border. I'm going to make this outer border these, where it is, the half drop blocks kind of thing. If I want it to be, maybe I want it to be not locked. I want it to be 2 inches. And I want these to be 2 inches wide, but I also want them to be 4 inches long. I would then need to figure out how many blocks I need. And since these are half drop blocks, like this last block in each one of them is weird. If I use just regular blocks, I just need to figure out how many blocks in here I would need to get the right number. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 to get to the right size that I want. And so then it's always a challenge, right? It's always a challenge of figuring out like what's the right number of these. And then it doesn't always work well. So on the quilt that I was doing, because I have some really specific things that I want, I ended up just doing the border as a block border, like that I built myself, so that I could adjust as needed with the size of the quilt, and then adjust this inner border as well with the size of the quilt without disrupting the outer border as much. I don't know if that answered any questions for anybody, but that's what I was doing. And that's when y'all came in. No quilts in sketchbook. Open a project. No, I'm not going to save that. And so this is where I was working before. And this is that quilt without a border. So if I wanted, I could come back over here and I could add 2 borders. I could make this border 1.75 and make this border top and bottom 2 inches, which is what I would do. And then I could make this one 2 inches and 2 inches. And so that would give me both of those borders. But then this border, what I really want it to be is a block border. And so I would need, hopefully to get it to the right size, I would need that. Something like that. Cancel, design. Oh, so many things. That's not what I want to do. Colors. All right. Eyedropper, that one. So ideally, what will happen with this particular quilt is that this border here would end up being a ooh, gosh, that's wrong. That should be like that. So this border here you would use whatever scraps you have or whatever's left over from when you piece together the inside. So it would be whatever colors you were using on the inside would be what you would end up with on the outside. Right? All right. So I did that. My problem is actually going to be in this right here, because I need these blocks here to be the same as the side blocks. I don't need that, but it's, for consistency's sake. And so this is why I didn't end up using this kind of regular normal border, and I ended up building it myself. Because what happens is it's going to make these kind of equal all the way across, when really what I want is for these cornerstones to actually be 2 by 3. So if they're 2 by 3, that would allow each of these blocks to be 4 inches, if that makes sense. So each of these blocks could be 4 inches, and then when you would cut them at 4.5 and sew them together so that they are 4 inches. And then when they are done, when the whole thing is done and pieced together, everything will look uniform or more uniform. You won't notice that this appears to be, that these corners appear to be about 1 inch longer each. That won't be noticeable when it's all said and done. Could I change the size? I absolutely could change the size. But I won't, because that would, again, make it really, really difficult. So I used this layout here. So this is where I took all like the pictures and I did all the printouts and all of that stuff from this particular layout, so that this layout would show really, really beautifully on the pattern itself. So anytime we see the pattern, what we see is that particular layout from EQ8. But where I get all of the measurements from in EQ8 as I'm building it ends up being the one that I built. Yes. Ends up being this one that I kind of built freeform, without the snaps, without any of this stuff. Because freeform without the snaps, without any of this stuff, allowed me to get the border laid out the way I wanted it, and get measurements for the border the way I want it, and get all of this, even though all of this looks kind of wonky and isn't really necessary. Let's see, and then this needs to be flipped. So not rotate, flip. We want it to flip. That's the one. And so then, because none of this really snaps and it's a little bit wonky, nothing is really showing us fitting together very well on this mock-up. But that's okay, because the real mock-up has it shown correctly. And I'm just playing around. There's nobody over on YouTube watching us right now, by the way. Hello, hello. How is everybody? I don't know who's here. I really haven't been paying attention. I'm so sorry. Um, is this electric quilt? Yes, this is EQ8. Thank you, Tai Tai. I love it as well. Hello, hello. According to the plan. I know, right? Okay. Flip. Hi. How's it going, y'all? I had this set up originally, like I was like had the dual camera thing going, and I don't know what happened to my dual camera, and I don't think I can turn my dual camera back on unless I turn off the live and come back in. So I'm just not going to turn the dual camera back on. It's going all right, mister. It's going all right. I am my room is a huge fucking mess, and my day was long and not very fun. um I work in, okay, the industry I work in is nonprofit, back office nonprofit. That's what I do. It's what we do. I work specifically in the payroll and HR side of that, but the industry I work in is back office nonprofits, all of those things. And this week has been really hard in this industry. Um, every day brings a new set of executive orders that brings a new set of challenges for different types of nonprofits. Um, and I think last night, and you guys either have heard about it or you haven't, but last night there was an executive order for essentially that says that the office, the OMB office of money, the people who manage and determine kind of what organizations get grants and get funding in the country, federally funded in the country. The executive order essentially said, "Hey, hold up, stop. We are pausing all of this." And the language in that executive order is really scary, because essentially what it said, without giving any actual fucking specifics, what it said was that they were going to pause all the funding so that all of the agencies that are giving funds to organizations have until, I think it's February 10th, which is like literally a week and a half away. They need to deliver information on what organizations they're giving funds to and what those funds are being used for, and they're going to determine whether or not those funds are going to continue after that at some point in time, because even that's not been really discussed. But at some point in time, will those funds continue, or will they end because of woke ideology and all of that shit? So that is the kind of executive order that is really frightening for people, especially when you're talking about nonprofits whose missions really are to service underserviced organizations across the country, underserviced populations across the country. We work with, you think of, any LGBTQ organizations, any organizations that deal specifically in harm reduction um, any sort of uh, population of immigrants, any organizations um, uh, that deal in healthcare for underserved populations. All of those things um, uh, could have federal funding that is in jeopardy currently. We know right now, based on the executive order that went into effect today at 5 p.m., that Medicare portals across the country have been going dark all afternoon. We know that happened today. Um, so people who are insured through Medicare have been kind of left in the dark because those portals have been going dark. And it is possible that those will come back up in the day or two, but the language in the executive order did not allow for anybody to know what actually needed to happen. It's just a really scary time to have federally funded programs and to not know if that federally funded program is going to happen. Especially, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term reimbursement grant, but a reimbursement grant is a grant that is given to an organization, and that organization spends the money and then proves to the agency that gave them the grant that they used the money. And so the organization that gets the grant doesn't actually receive the money until they've already spent the money. So until they've already delivered the services. So what this has done for some of those that may have been on reimbursement grants is it has meant that they have spent money that they don't yet have and they may not get, or they may not get for a while. And I think the part of this that maybe people don't necessarily know, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of boring you guys with all of the things that have happened over the last 24 hours. The part I think that people don't necessarily understand is that it's not like it's not like these nonprofits get this money and it goes only towards the mission, right? So a lot of the funding that you get in a grant, a good portion of it, usually a pretty good portion of it that you get in a grant is is admin fees. So the admin fees that you get as part of the grant, those are what go to actually pay staff. Mr. Zahir, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen, buddy. I don't know you. So the admin portion of a grant is what goes to pay staff. And oftentimes, if you don't have that money, you don't pay staff. And then if you don't pay staff, you don't have staff. So people end up either working for free or losing their gainful employment when grants go away. So if grants and funding goes away federally, portions of jobs go away from whatever organization was getting those grants. And there's a lot. I'm talking in really simplified terms, but there's a lot that goes into even getting a grant. Like you have to prove that you're going to use the money. You have to prove that you're going to use the money for what you say that you're going to use it for. And then if you don't use the money for what you say you're going to use it for, you actually end up having to give that money back. These are oftentimes restricted. They are rarely unrestricted funds. So restricted funds are are funds that you get for a specific use. And unrestricted funds are funds that you get essentially that can just go to any of your projects or any of the needs of your organization. A lot of times these federal grants are restricted, so they have to use them for what they say they're going to use them for, and they have to be the portions that they said that they were going to be. So if you get a grant that is 30% admin, that 30% can go towards the things like maintaining the grant, bookkeeping, all of those kind of stupid things that we all know cost money, but nobody really thinks about it. But it's that kind of stuff. And if it's 23% payroll, then you have to make sure that what you are funding your payroll with equates to that 23% of that particular grant. So a lot of times these organizations stack these grants so that they can be fully funded and they can do all of the things. And again, I'm talking in general terms. Balance sheet to prove exactly what you're saying. Exactly. But it's not just a balance sheet. And that's the other part of that is there's a lot of, nonprofit accounting. There's a lot of fund accounting in there. So it's a balance sheet to show exactly what you're doing. But it's also, you have to put in the actual receipts. So, what portion of how much were your full benefits? What portion of your benefits did this grant pay for? How much was your full reimbursement for admin? And how much did this grant go towards that? It's a full on annual journal, and all sorts of fun stuff, all sorts of payroll journals, and all sorts of fun, great things. And so with the executive order, with the pause last night, it actually leaves a lot of organizations in the dark. And that is the scariest part of it is nobody knows what is and is not included in this. Unfortunately, the government is paying many things that are being monopoly money to many things. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't. Here's the amount of money that we are talking about is less than 1% of 1%. A pretty one. Yay, that's so awesome. I love that. Yeah, so the amount of money that we're talking about from the budget here is not significant in terms of the overall budget of everything. But when we talk about pausing funding without knowing what we're pausing, that starts to get really, really kind of frightening. I wish there was more thought involved. Am I going to the February show in Hampton? I'm not. I'm going to Phoenix at the end of February. So the only show I was able to do in the first quarter is the Phoenix QuiltCon show. So I will be at Phoenix. But I won't be. I didn't make it to Statesville last weekend, which I wanted to, and I won't make it into Virginia or Delaware or Maryland this year, I think. But I'm gonna try to get to Denver next year. Denver's one that I want to try to get to. I think I might skip Houston again next year or this year. Yeah, Joy, that's so we're gonna try to do Kansas City. Ooh, that'll be fun. Yeah, so low income people are the ones that will be affected the most by this pause, because they generally are the ones who utilize those services more. Um, so things like Head Start for kids, those Head Start programs are really invaluable, especially to lower income working families who would otherwise not be able to have their children in daycare or preschool. Um, so not being able to fund Head Start, preschool is right. Preschool is so expensive. It's so expensive, and I remember working with young families. Hospice is another one. Being able to pay for hospice is a big deal. It's a big deal. Um, so the the programs we're talking about are not all specific to the things that are not going to get paused. Um, the anything going to a direct individual is not being paused. Right. So, but so the thing is, what is in the executive order and what keeps coming out is that we don't know all of the details for what is and is not being paused, and because we don't know all the details, they are stopping services until they have information. That is the biggest problem, is that there is no detail that was written into the order, and so what's coming out is coming out piecemeal. So what I know today, from having done all of the things on all of the work and all of the whatevers today, is that Medicare portals across the country have been shutting down today because they don't know whether or not they'll be funded, and they don't know whether or not they can be funded, and so they are shutting down. Hopefully they come back up. Hopefully they come back up soon, because people can't live without health care. Uh, we know that some of the Head Start funds will be there. Well, they're not pausing before they know the facts. They're pausing because the facts haven't been given. I want to be really clear about it. It's not they're pausing before they know the facts. They're pausing because nobody has determined what the facts are. Even when asked directly, we've not been given a list of what services will be funded and what services will not be funded, because what was written was not well thought out. And that's the thing. We're not sitting here. Nobody's sitting here going, "Oh well, we're just going to stop working because we don't know the facts." They're stopping working because they don't have the money to do it. The list should have already been available. I mean, that's the other part of it. Is the executive order went out last night. The list should have been available this morning, and it is not. And it's not available because, again, they didn't think it through. And I personally don't have strong positive feelings about the current administration. And this is the reason why. It's because it is not well thought through. These things are not well thought through. There's a whole executive order about the sex you are at conception is the sex that you shall always be, except the sex you are at conception is technically not at all. So the executive order makes no sense. The spirit of the executive order, I understand what they're saying. I disagree with it, but yeah, 2,600 grants and services are impacted. It is a lot. I will not do the all sides argument. I won't do the both sides are the same. I won't do that both sides are bad argument. One side is definitely worse at one side is definitely worse at creating distraction and definitely less viable for low income people than the other side. I'm not saying I like Democrats. I would not call myself a Democrat. I would tell you 100% of the time that I have a lot of real spite towards the Democratic Party. Um, However, harm reduction wise, I do think that one group, one political party is different and is less caring, less empathetic than the other side. Yeah, I will always pick harm reduction. I will always pick empathy and harm reduction. I will never pick somebody who is doing stuff just to do stuff. They were not specific with a plan, and that is the problem. The problem is I whether or not I agree economically with stuff is not a thing. Whether I agree philosophically with stuff, also not so much a thing. What I what I have a problem with, and the amount of work I had to do today because of it, um, uh, is that none of these executive orders were thought through. None of these executive orders were written and thought through in a way to which anyone can explain what should happen, and it should be explainable immediately. So much of this is intended to distract from what's really going on. It's intended to overwhelm. Also true. Also true. The reason all of this happens as such a flurry is because it is um, it is designed it is designed to keep people always in a constant state of panic, because when you're in a state of panic, you can't think about or look at things critically. And so that's where we are. Like we're all in kind of this state of panic. But there's a lot to panic about when we're talking about funding for lots and lots of programs. Um, and when we say things like, oh, but payments to individuals will continue, um, a lot of things are not payments to individuals. We're not talking about, I'm not talking about SNAP. I'm not talking about welfare payments or Social Security payments or those kinds of things. We are talking about programs that people use every day that will no longer be funded, or at least won't be funded until they determine whether or not they should be funded. But a lot of these programs that we are talking about impact people. The way that the order is written also is that it cannot go, they're going to look for things that support DEI, because apparently nobody understands what DEI actually is. The gender ideology, I don't understand. I know what they mean by gender ideology, because that's a term that gets used against my community a lot. But when they say gender ideology, what they mean is that it will not fund. They will not fund LGBTQIA programs. Period. So a lot of LGBTQIA programs involve, I think people think of it as, oh, it's just, people getting their transition surgeries paid for, and gender affirming care and all of that. And a lot of that is exactly not what it is. The vast majority of that funding goes towards things like HIV, and STI awareness. HIV and STI screenings, making sure that people have medications, making sure that LGBTQ youth are not able to do anything else, that are thrown out of their houses, that are living on the streets, that they have a place to live. Like, there's a lot of those programs that I fear the funding won't return to. And that's been a hard day. And I apologize for really, really going off about it because it was not what I was planning to do tonight. I was just going to write a quilt pattern. Anywho, how's your? I'm going to shut off the YouTube one. Hey, Larry, I'm going to shut off the YouTube one and we're going to play some music.